Well, I'm gonna go ahead and get started. I'm Kaci. I'm one of the registered dietitians at Forum. So I will be doing a cooking class today just on healthy desserts. Has everybody gotten a copy of the desserts, the recipes?
I haven't. I didn't know there was a copy.
Yes,
I did not.
they're in the files on Facebook. So
Okay.
if you want like a copy of all these recipes at the end of the cooking class, they're on a file on Facebook. So
Okay.
you can access them there. Yeah.
All right.
We've got a couple more people coming in right now, so I'll wait till they come fully in.
Okay.
And like I was saying before, I'm Kaci and I will be recorded during this whole cooking class, but feel free to speak up. I really want this to be interactive. So feel free to speak up. Nobody else is recorded. So it might say that the session's being recorded, but it's only me that's recorded. So feel free to speak up and talk and make this as interactive and fun. It'll make me less nervous if y'all talk and interact with me during this. So, but we'll go ahead and get started. So today's all about desserts. I love desserts. I'm got the biggest sweet tooth. So I try to figure out ways to incorporate the desserts into a healthy lifestyle, which I fully believe desserts can be incorporated into a healthy lifestyle. How many of y'all have tried to completely eliminate sugar, eliminate desserts for like a period of time?
I have.
Does it work?
No.
Right, exactly. So that's why I feel like if you find a way to incorporate desserts in the right context and in the right balance, your healthy lifestyle is going to extend for a lot longer than if you try to tell yourself you can't have sugar and you can't have desserts and all of that. It's just not doable long term, right? And I'm a firm believer of you can't do it forever, why do it at all?
Yeah.
So hopefully having some of these healthier desserts recipes will help. I have made all of these before and I have frozen all of them and they're fantastic in the freezer. And then you can just pop them out, microwave a cookie, microwave a brownie for like 10 seconds and enjoy it. So they last, you can make a batch of one of these healthy desserts up, pop them in the freezer for up to 3 months and have them just little by little as you really want them.
Cool.
One of the things that hopefully we'll talk about throughout this cooking class is just some of the ways to enjoy dessert mindfully and in the right context, so that you kind of learn those tools as we also learn how to cook these recipes and just have a really good understanding of how desserts can be incorporated into a healthy lifestyle once we leave today. But does anybody have any questions now before we get started, or anything you want to talk about when it comes to desserts or mindfully eating desserts or how they are incorporated into a lifestyle?
No.
Okay. Well, we're going to start with chocolate first because chocolate is amazing. So we're going to start with the Greek yogurt brownies. To start off making these, what I've already done, just because my microwave's not even in my kitchen, I have to go back out and forth. You start by melting 2 tablespoons of butter with half a cup of chocolate chips, just in a bowl. So that's in this bowl right here. So you can kind of see how this is just melted together. That's how you start the recipe. And I always microwave chocolate in 30-second increments and then stir and then do 30 seconds more because you don't want to burn it. So if you check on it every 30 seconds, you're more likely not to burn the chocolate and it get clumpy, and it's more like a, nice melted gooey chocolate-ness. Okay, so the next thing we're going to do with this recipe is we're going to mix together all of our dry ingredients, which are pretty simple. What I like about this is that pretty much all of our dry ingredients are the exact same quantity. So you do 1/4 of a cup of almond flour.
Now, can you substitute like coconut flour or
I'm sure you
something?
can. Yes, I've never tried it. I'm not sure, but I'm sure any kind of flour alternative or even actual all-purpose flour would work fine.
Okay.
Yeah. Then you do 1/4 cup of unsweetened cocoa powder. And 1/4 of a teaspoon of salt. So again, it's kind of cool. Everything's 1/4 of something. So it's easy to remember.
Yeah.
And so then you just kind of stir this all together. You stir all the dry ingredients together. And you set it aside. The other thing I've done is I've preheated the oven to 350. So that's what you bake these on, is 350 degrees. So I've already put that on. So you do your dry ingredients, you melt your chocolate and your butter together, and then you start adding your wet ingredients to the melted butter and chocolate. So the wet ingredients, well, this is a dry ingredient, but you do the half a cup of sugar. Now, half a cup of sugar might seem like a lot, and if you want to cut back on the sugar even more, you can. I feel like this recipe would be just as good with just maybe like a fourth or a third cup of sugar. Sometimes you can always, for most dessert recipes, you usually can half the amount of sugar in it and it still have that sweetness. Not as sweet, but still have a little bit of sweetness. So if you wanted to do that, I'm sure you could. So you put half a cup of sugar to the melted butter and chocolate. You do 3/4 cup of plain Greek yogurt. This is where your protein is coming from, right? And this is kind of substituting like for like the vegetable oil or something that would be in regular brownies. So 3/4 cup of the yogurt, and then 2 eggs, 2 large eggs, and 1 teaspoon of vanilla extract all together in here. So we're going to get all the chocolate off that spoon because we don't want to leave any chocolate in here. You're going to simply whisk this all together until it forms. Sorry, y'all can't see exactly what I'm doing. But you whisk all these wet ingredients together first until they're fully combined. And it's going to kind of create like a lighter brownie, like a lighter chocolate color. Honestly, when I made these brownies the first time, when we taste them, they really taste like chocolate cheesecake. That's what they're going to taste like. They're so good. They have like a brownie consistency, but like a cheesecake flavor. And I think that comes from the Greek yogurt a little bit. But that's kind of what you want your batter to look like. Can y'all see that?
Yeah.
Okay. So you whisk all of those together, and then you add your dry ingredients to this. The other really great thing about most of these recipes is they're really only like 1 or 2 bowls, so it's easy cleanup. You add these dry ingredients to here. While I'm whisking, when I first started the cooking class, I kind of talked a little bit or said I was going to give some tips on mindful eating when it comes to desserts. What does that mean to y'all when I say like mindfully eating desserts? Have y'all talked about that with your dietitians, and like what does that mean to you?
To me, it means actually paying attention how much I eat or how much I take. Sometimes I have a bad habit of sitting in the living room and watching TV, and sometimes you can eat like a lot. If I don't take a certain amount, and I just bring a whole, like say a whole platter of brownies out, I think you can eat like 2 or 3 brownies without realizing how much you've actually eaten. And that to me is mindful, paying attention to how much I have, or, and actually paying attention to eating it instead of just like shoving it in the face and, watching TV or something.
Absolutely. Anybody else? I'm gonna add half a cup of chocolate chips. I'm gonna fold in half a cup of chocolate chips to this batter.
Okay.
Anybody else? I'm sorry, a fourth of a cup of chocolate chips, not a half a cup, a fourth. Yeah, so I really think like mindful eating when it comes to desserts, what I think about a lot is trying to make the dessert an event, right? So if you're going to, like, say you crave ice cream in the summer and you really want ice cream, making an actual event to go out of the house, go get ice cream with your family, either at a, like some farms sell ice cream, or like an ice cream parlor or an actual ice cream shop, and making it an event versus always having a gallon in your house and just eating it every night just because it's a habit, or just because you're used to eating it when you watch TV. Like that's one tip on like the whole mindful eating.
Yeah, that makes sense to me.
Yeah, I'm gonna get a 9x9 pan that I put like parchment paper on, so it's easier to get the brownies out, and I've also sprayed it with baking spray. But after you fold in a 1/4 cup of chocolate chips, you're just gonna pour the batter. Can y'all see this batter?
Ooh,
Like
good.
so creamy, it's delicious, chocolatey. Just pour the batter in there. And one of the reasons I was also saying about the freezing and then just getting like one brownie out, microwaving it for 10 seconds, or the cookies, it's because that does help with portion control, right? So like, instead of taking this whole batch of brownies to the couch, or keep going back to the kitchen for more after you have one, if they're in the freezer, you can't do that. You just get one out on the nights that you really crave it and want something chocolatey, and microwave it for a little bit, and then you're done. The rest are still in the freezer. They're not going anywhere.
Yeah.
Okay, and then, let me that spatula back. You're just gonna spread out the brownie batter. So it's, spread it, distributed evenly into this baking pan. I had a patient today talk about how her family this time of year, like she has 2 boys, and her family loves caramel apples. That's like their favorite thing this time of the year. And she said that the way that they do it is they get 1 caramel apple, and after dinner, they still sit at the dinner table and they slice it up and they share it. They all share it. And she's like, when we do that, I don't feel guilty. I don't think it's a bad thing. And I said, I don't think it is either, because that's an event, right? That's like sitting there mindfully eating the apple as an event with your family versus just munching on a bunch of caramel apples at night while you're watching TV.
Yeah.
Mindlessly, I guess.
Yeah.
Okay. So then what you can do, if you really want to jazz it up a little bit, is you just sprinkle it with some more chocolate chips on top. Because why not, right? So you make sure you get a little bit of chocolate chips in every bite. And then we're just gonna bake these for 20 to 25 minutes. So that's what it looks like in the pan.
Oh, yeah,
Okay,
let's
so
just
put these in the
break it
oven
down.
for 25 minutes. All right, any questions about the Greek yogurt brownies? One recipe down.
No, seemed pretty easy, quick recipe, kind of like that.
Does anybody else have any questions about, or any tip, like mindful eating tips that they've learned that could be incorporated with desserts? One thing I always say too, and I know that this can be really easy, like if you have a pan of brownies in the kitchen, or like cookies, it is so easy to just like walk through the kitchen and grab like a little bite and keep on walking. Or like as I'm making my kids' meals, I can just, let me grab a bite of, and I don't even know I'm doing it, right? You don't even know you're eating it. You're just doing it. So one of my biggest tips is to not eat anything if you're standing up. Always sit down. So if you do even just grab like a piece of a cookie off the counter, go sit down and eat it, because your brain is then going to really register that you're eating it, right? And you might like 2 bites in be like, I don't even really want this right now. Let me throw this away or put this back. So that's another just easy thing to think about, is like, don't eat anything unless you're sitting down. Okay, so the chocolate can go up. The next thing we're gonna do are I'm gonna do the peanut butter banana oat cookies. So we'll get everything out ready for that to go. And honestly, these are a dessert, but they can also, I sometimes feed these. I have a 2-year-old and a 4-year-old. And I sometimes feed these to my kids as like an afternoon snack or even a breakfast sometimes because they're that nutrient dense. Get a couple more things. Okay, so for these, what you're gonna do is you're gonna start by mashing 2 ripe bananas. So I literally have a potato masher. I've got 2 bananas in here. You're just gonna mash them until they're pretty, soft. Has anybody made any kind of cookies like this that start off with mashed bananas?
I've made pancakes like that.
You made pancakes like this? Yeah, that's
Yeah,
another one you
with
can
a
make with
couple
mashed bananas.
eggs, yeah, and bananas.
Overripe bananas should never be thrown away. There are so many things you can do with them.
Yeah.
Sometimes I buy extra bananas when they're on sale at the store. Once I actually ordered too many in my grocery pickup because I forgot it was by the bunch instead of by per banana. And I ended up a lot more than I needed.
Oh my goodness, how many bunches did you get?
8. So I peeled them and I put them on baking sheets and I put them in the freezer. And then when they were frozen, I put them in Ziploc bags. And I use them for making recipes and for putting my smoothies, sometimes a half at a time. And now I just do it automatically because I hate it when they go bad so quickly.
Yeah.
And I always know I have one. It only takes a second to take it out of the freezer.
That is genius to like freeze
Yeah.
them. I've never frozen the ripe bananas. I'm gonna have to start doing that.
I do.
And then
Yeah.
I put them on baking
That's
sheets
really
so
awesome.
separate. And then I put
Yeah.
them in a Ziploc bag later.
Yeah.
8 bunches of bananas. That's
My
like something
son
I would do. I mean, for
Just
real.
when I had COVID, my son picked up the groceries for us because I had COVID. And he said to me, Mom, what's with the bananas?
Yeah. I was just really craving bananas today. I don't know what to tell you.
I don't know, must be the COVID.
That's so funny. Okay, so 2, like you get your bananas pretty mashed, and then you're gonna add 2 cups of quick oats, which adds some fiber, a little bit of protein, nutrients. So the other great thing about these kind of recipes are they are gluten-free. So if you do have somebody in your household that's celiac or trying to just go, reduce the gluten, these kind of cookies that are just oats are gluten-free. And then you want to do half a cup of natural peanut butter or almond butter. If you want to use almond butter, you can use almond butter. It's another awesome thing about, a lot of these recipes, you can make some substitutions as you need to. So half a cup of natural peanut butter. This is another 1 bowl, easy peasy recipe that comes together
Nice.
so quick. Peanut butter. And then we're gonna do 1 scoop of vanilla whey protein powder. So this is adding some more protein powder to it. And then for sweetness, we're gonna do a tablespoon of maple syrup. That's where the sweetness comes from. Well, and the bananas. Bananas add a ton of sweetness to it as well. Natural sugar. Then half a teaspoon of salt. Half a teaspoon of vanilla extract. And half a cup of chocolate chips. I use the mini ones for this. I just think the mini chocolate chips work better. And I like them, but you can use regular chocolate chips too. Either way. And then you simply just stir all of this together.
Can you use any kind of chocolate chips, or is it better to use dark chocolate or the Lily's unsweetened or something like that?
So the Lily's unsweetened is definitely gonna be less sugar. So that's going to be the benefit from that. Dark chocolate has more antioxidants in it and typically does have less sugar just in general. So typically the higher cocoa like percentage of chocolate is, the less sugar it's going to have.
Okay.
So if you're looking to reduce sugar a little bit more, then yes, the dark chocolate or the Lily's like unsweetened or, you know, less sugar-free chocolate chips are going to be better. But I mean, per cookie, I don't think it's going to make that big of a difference, right? Because all like half a cup of chocolate chips are spread over 16 cookies. So I don't know. I'm kind of, you know, we're already making so many healthy substitutions in this cookie that I don't think you necessarily have to. But if you want to, then it's not going to change, I don't think, the taste at all.
Okay, thanks.
Each cookie, each one of these cookies is 150 calories and it's 5 grams of protein and 2 grams of fiber, 18 grams of carbs. So this cookie versus the pumpkin one is a little bit more calorie dense. So you want to, I would say like just one, whereas the pumpkin cookie is going to be less carbs, less it's like 100 calories a cookie that we're going to do next. But yeah, that would be totally up to you. So what I've done is I've already put wax paper on a cookie sheet and sprayed it with cooking spray. And we'll grab a spoon real quick. Did anybody know what time I put those brownies in? Because I did not. What, 5 minutes ago? 5 or 10 minutes ago?
Yeah, about
Yeah.
5.
About.
Oh, that makes me
So,
feel
like,
better.
We're gonna go with 10. Wait, we might go with like 15 minutes. I'll check. Whoops, hold on. Again, this is my first time doing this. Bear with me. Remember everything. All right. And then you're just gonna take spoonfuls. This is gonna make about 16 cookies. So you want to kind of just like keep that in mind when you're doing the spoonfuls. Because that's what I've done the nutrition analysis with. So just take a spoon and just spoon it off on here. It does not need to be fancy. You don't have to make sure that they're like in a perfect ball or anything like that. You literally just take them and spoon it out. Any questions about this recipe?
No.
Is this kind of similar to what y'all done before for the ones who've done the banana cookies?
Yes.
Yeah. They're so good and easy. That's what they look like once you put them on here. Okay. These bake. I'm gonna set the timer this time. These bake for 15 minutes at 350. So that worked out because I put the timer for 15 minutes on the brownies. So, all right. The rest of that dough away. Next I had to throw in a fall recipe because it's fall, so I had to do a pumpkin recipe. Next are gonna be pretty much the exact same thing, but with pumpkin added to them instead of the peanut butter. So that's really what makes them a little bit less calories too, because it has the pumpkin as the kind of the wet ingredient instead of the peanut butter. So I'm just gonna start by mashing these bananas again. Has your dietitians or have y'all seen on our Facebook or our Instagram page the 5 Ds of disarming food cravings? Has anybody talked to you about that yet?
I actually was just looking at it before this started. I have to go back to it.
Really? Okay.
Yes.
So one of my favorite tools for, I guess, trying to disarm a food craving, if I think it is truly just a craving that could pass, but also to really kind of like ask myself, is this really a time to indulge in a dessert? is practicing the 5 Ds of food cravings. So the first one is distancing yourself. Like, so say, it was my birthday a couple weeks ago and there's a birthday cake in the kitchen, right? Like just try not to go near the kitchen or putting the birthday cake like in the fridge or somewhere where I don't just see it all the time. So distancing is the first one. Another example of that would be like if you're at work and the break room is full of like sweet treats and stuff, trying just not to go into the break room. So the first one is distance. The second one is delay, because if it's a true food craving and not hunger, typically it passes. So I always tell people to try to wait 10 to 15 minutes for the craving to pass. But the key here is the third D, and that's distract. So during that 10 to 15 minutes, while you're delaying, you have to distract yourself. Because if you just sit there and think about the food for 10 to 15 minutes, you're just going to want to go get the food. So you've got to distract yourself. And that's like finding an alternative activity, whether it is calling a friend, going for a walk, cleaning is a big one, like in the house, like going and organize something or cleaning something, or, you know, doing a task that you need to do at work, doing something that's going to like get your mind off the food is a really, really important one. So that's distract. I'll tell you about the other ones here in a second. So we're going to to the bananas, we're going to add 2.5 cups of quick oats to this one. The third one, no, the fourth one is determine. So this is a 1/2 cup, so I'm going to do this 5 times. So the fourth one is determine. So this is when you have that conversation with yourself, right? Like you ask yourself, is this food worth it right now? Is this one of those moments where I truly want a dessert? Or am I just eating it because it's there? Am I just eating it because my spouse or my kid is eating it? Is it just become a habit, or do I truly want it, right? One of my patients just told me what they asked themselves, which I think is genius. They asked, is this food going to fuel my body, or is it going to fuel my addiction, or fuel my emotions, or fuel my mind instead of fueling my body? And so I thought that was another great way of like another question to ask in that whole step of determining if the food is worth it right now. You're then going to add, how much pumpkin? This is a cup of pumpkin puree. And then if you determine that it is worth it, that's when then you decide like, okay, it's worth it to me right now, but how much do I need, right? Can I eat just one brownie, the whole can? Can I do half a cookie instead of the whole cookie? Or, you know, just a bite of the cake? That's when it's really important at that point just to decide how much to have. So those are the 5 Ds. Distance, delay, distract, determine, and then decide. Sometimes helpful to go through those steps.
My mom always had a saying for me when I was a kid. It's like before dinner, I'd always say, I'm starving. I need a cookie. I can't wait till dinner. I'm starving.
Yeah.
And she'd say, well, have an apple. So, well, I don't want an apple.
Right.
And then she'd say, well, if you don't want an apple, then you're not hungry.
Right. Right. Exactly. That's feeling like appetite versus
determine. And I think of that every time I go to determine whether I really need something is, do I want an apple?
Yeah.
If I don't, I'm not hungry. I am bored.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that is another, I use that a lot when patients say like a carrot or an apple. Yeah. Just something that you like, but you don't love, you know, will really help you determine whether or not you're hungry, and it will truly fuel your body versus if it's just a craving that you don't, you know.
Apples and chocolate are not the same.
I'm sorry?
Apples and chocolate are not the same.
Yeah, no, they're not.
I want chocolate. Do I need an apple?
Yeah. So we've got the cup of pumpkin puree, 2.5 cups of oats, and then the 2 bananas in here. I'm going to add 2 tablespoons of maple syrup. This. And then 1 scoop of protein powder for the protein. The other cool thing about these cookies is that if you don't get the measurements exact, it's not gonna make that big a difference. That again. And then 1/2 teaspoon of salt again. And then 2 teaspoons. Yep, 2 teaspoons of pumpkin pie spice or cinnamon. I don't know if anybody has a Trader Joe's near you, but they sell like just the pumpkin pie spice, and I think most grocery stores do too now, like McCormick has it. But you do 2 teaspoons of that or cinnamon. Smells so good. That pumpkin pie spice. And then again, half of a cup of chocolate chips. And I use the mini again for this. And then once again, you just mix all this up until it's fully combined. And again, the pumpkin kind of acts like the binder in these versus the peanut butter and the cookies we just did. So. And each one of these cookies is 100 calories, 17 grams of carbs, 5 grams of protein, 2 grams of fiber, and 3 grams of fat. My other baking sheet. And then again, you're just gonna spoon, little spoonfuls. This is what the batter looks like. By the way, once you're done mixing all that together. Then you just spoon. Any questions, comments, anything anybody wants to add about those 5 Ds while I'm spinning these out?
I have a question. It calls for a cup of pumpkin puree. I've had a few different really nutritious recipes that come for pumpkin, but you can't buy pumpkin puree in a quantity of a cup. So when you open the can, like, what do you do with the rest? Can you freeze it?
That's a good question. I usually will put tinfoil over it and put it in the fridge for up to like a week or so, and just try to find other recipes to use with it. Pumpkin is good for dogs, so I sometimes mix it in my dog's food, like their food. Or like, we just posted, or I don't know if we posted yet, but there will be a reel on how to make pumpkin cottage cheese pancakes. So that's another recipe. Pumpkin's awesome with sauces. So like if I have an extra, like some extra pumpkin, if I'm making chili, I'll throw the pumpkin in the chili. You can't know that.
Yeah, I do that. Yeah.
Yeah. Unfortunately, I don't know if you can freeze it. I've never tried freezing just the actual pumpkin. I think what you could do is put it in like little ice cube trays. If it's freezable, and then freeze it and then pop it out as you need it, like in any kind of recipe. But I would have to look up online whether or not you can freeze pumpkin. I'm not sure, because it might have high water content. I'm not sure.
Yeah, I've frozen it before, and it does get more watery because I make dog treats for my dog, and it calls for like a cup of pumpkin. So I always have some left but for the dog treats, it's okay if it's a little bit more watery, but it does get more watery if you do freeze it.
Yeah.
Okay. Thanks.
That's
Yeah, I have a turkey pumpkin recipe that's really good too.
Yeah. Oh, but another great way to use pumpkin is if you take plain Greek yogurt and you mix like some vanilla protein powder in it, or like some stevia, and then you put pumpkin, like a spoonful or 2 of pumpkin in it with the pumpkin pie spice. It kind of creates this like pumpkin flavored yogurt pudding treat that you can always use the extra pumpkin on.
Okay. Thanks.
These are good. These bake for 10 minutes.
You're welcome.
These here. And I'm just gonna look at these real quick, these brownies. They look like they're so good. Okay, I'm just gonna rinse my hands off real quick. Some of this. And then last but not least, can y'all see me over here? Because I want you to be right here where this is plugged in. We have posted this recipe as a reel on our Instagram page. I don't know if anybody's ever seen it, but this is the infamous cottage cheese cookie dough recipe. Has anybody heard of cottage cheese cookie dough or any of these new recipes that are coming out?
No.
Using cottage cheese. They're kind of like viral TikTok trends for cottage cheese ice cream, cottage cheese cookie dough, cottage cheese pizza crust, cottage cheese queso dip, cottage cheese, I mean, anything. People are using cottage cheese for everything. I think we have a reel for cottage cheese ice cream, the cookie dough, the queso dip, and cottage cheese pizza on our Instagram page if you want other recipes for this, but this recipe is on there too. So what you're gonna do, anytime you do a recipe with cottage cheese, you start by blending it up. So all of those like curds are smooth and you don't have to worry about that. So you start off with 8 ounces of cottage cheese in a blender. And then the sweetener again is maple syrup. You do 2 tablespoons maple syrup. Oh, check on those brownies real quick first. Can I get a knife in there real quick? Let's see. I don't know about any of you, but I like my brownies a little gooey, so I don't let the knife be totally clean when I put it in. Because they're gonna continue baking a little bit when you take them out of the oven. So, but do you see, I wonder if I can show you. Can y'all see how this is kind of like cheesecakey like?
Yeah.
Like a souffle? That's kind of a texture you're looking for with these brownies. Because they're kind of a mix between a brownie and a cheesecake. Delicious. But we're gonna let this cool while I do this. So I actually think these banana cookies are done too. Let me grab those and get those out. Okay. Those are perfect. You see how they're just kind of like a little bit toasted brown on the edges? That's what you're looking for with those too. So good to go with those. All right, so while now those cool, we're gonna finish up this cottage cheese cookie dough. So 2 tablespoons maple syrup, 8 ounces of cottage cheese, and then a teaspoon of vanilla. You're gonna put that all in the blender. Drop my vanilla. Honestly, y'all, this recipe blew my mind when I made it. I was so skeptical about all of these cottage cheese dessert recipes. And I made my husband try it before I told him what it was. I just told him he was eating cookie dough. He liked it. He said the texture was a little different, but he thought it tasted the same. So, all right. So we're just gonna blend it.
It's chicken with squash in them. Squash. Yep.
You want to make sure that all the chunks are out of it. We'll go for a little bit longer. Alright, I'm gonna grab a spatula, and you're just gonna like. Grab my Christmas spatula. Then you're just gonna pour this liquid. See how it's become like really liquidy? Like no chunks, just liquid. Almost looks like a thick milk or yogurt almost. So you pour that into a bowl. And then we're gonna add 2/3 cup of almond flour. And then a scoop of the protein powder. So the cottage cheese and protein powder gives this so much protein. Each serving has 6 grams of protein and only 6 grams of carbohydrates. So 1 scoop of the protein powder.
No. No.
And then again, so what you're gonna do is you're just gonna stir this together. See if y'all can see what I'm doing. See what that looks like? Once you stir it all together, it's gonna kind of form like a cookie dough look.
I gotta move.
I'm sorry? Let me say something. And then you're gonna fold in another 1/2 cup of chocolate chips. I mean, chocolate chips are everywhere. Definitely use mini chocolate chips on this recipe. This definitely is better with the mini chocolate chips with this cookie dough recipe. So 1/2 cup of those. You just stir and fold those in. Now, you can eat this at room temperature. That's what it calls for, but I personally find that it's way better after it's been cold in the fridge or frozen. It's the best frozen. As like a cold frozen, almost like cookie dough ice cream treat. But this is what it looks like at room temperature. When you put it in the fridge, it can be in the fridge for up to 4 days. It's gonna become even like kind of like a thicker cookie dough type consistency. But what I love to do, and this is kind of my own little trick, is I freeze it in ice cube trays. Because then when you just want like one little treat, you can just pop an ice cream, and then when it's frozen, you can just pop one out. And that's a really great like after dinner, after lunch, just treat if you need something sweet after a meal. So you would literally just take this cookie dough and freeze them and just put them in these little ice cube trays and then stick them in the freezer. Questions about that? I'm not gonna sit here and do this all right now, but that's what you would do. Okay.
About cottage cheese, and I love it. I've always loved it, but all of a sudden I'm reading all about cottage cheese everywhere. Does it make any difference whether it's small, medium, or large curd, or is that just preference?
That's just preference when it comes to eating it. I always get small curd because that's my preference with eating it. So anytime I make a recipe, I use a small curd. And I would guess that it's going to be easier no matter what when you use the small curd to blend it and make it smooth when you're using it in a recipe. So
Okay.
I would recommend always trying to get the small curd because I just think that would be easier to blend and make that like smooth consistency.
Okay.
Yeah. I'm gonna stick this in my fridge actually because I don't know, it doesn't need to be out.
I just like a scoop of cottage cheese on a ripe native tomato, and that's good enough for me.
I've really gotten into it lately too. I haven't always been that big of a cottage cheese fan. But I put it on a ton of stuff. Like just today, what I did for lunch, it's the first time I ever did this, and it was really good. Was I sauteed up some frozen vegetables. I don't know if y'all have ever seen those roasted frozen vegetables from Costco. They come in like a big bag. Somebody shop at Costco. Well, they have these like bag. You could use any kind of frozen vegetables, but they have these like bags of roasted frozen vegetables. I sauteed those up and then I topped it with cottage cheese for protein. It was so good. It was delicious.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Hmm.
All right,
Yeah,
you're
I never
done.
thought of it.
So that's what the pumpkin ones look like. They just look a little bit more orange golden because they got the pumpkin. So let's try, I'm gonna try cutting into the brownies and hopefully they'll all work. Show y'all what that looks like. They actually may have could have gone a little bit longer. Didn't have it the timer set, so you know. But they might, I think we probably timed it, what, like 20 minutes? They might need 25. Yeah, they fell apart a little bit, but that's what the brownie looks like.
Oh, cool. Yep.
So that's brownie, and then look at these cookies. They kind of pop right off. These look like, open them up, kind of gooey and soft inside. Y'all getting hungry yet? Because I am.
Yep.
I just smell it all. I'm like, oh my gosh, it smells so good. Taking everything out of me not to be like, I'm just gonna eat this right now. And then these still need to cool a little bit. But the pumpkin cookies are very similar to the banana oat. So we've got Greek yogurt brownies, banana protein oat cookies with peanut butter, and pumpkin cookies and cottage cheese cookie dough.
Awesome. Cool.
Okay.
Thank you.
I
You're
can't
welcome.
believe you did that
Anybody
in
have
45
any
minutes.
questions or anything for me to kind of wrap up today?
I'm
Uh,
amazed it only took 45 minutes before desserts.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And with me talking, right? And the
That's
other
wild.
thing is, it's only like most of these recipes that you saw were one bowl meal, one bowl recipes, right? Like these cookies, one bowl, brownie,
Yeah.
2 bowls, this, a blender and 1 bowl. So it's like no cleanup, minimal ingredients, healthy. Like I said, the best thing to do with all this is freeze it. So make them, freeze them, and then you just have these sweet treats you can pop out when you go through those 5 Ds. You want something mindfully and you really want a treat, you can get them out, pop them out, and that's really great for portion control too.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Okay, well,
Sounds
thank
good.
you so much for joining me today. Again, this is my first time doing this, so I hope it was okay for everybody, and you kind of, you know, minus the not setting a timer, always set a timer when you bake something. That's important.
All right.
Yeah, but it was so great having you on. I
Thank
hope you
you.
have a wonderful Monday.
Yeah.
Thank you,
Thanks.
Kaci.
You.
All right, you're welcome.
Bye.
Goodbye.
Why can't I not?
Bye.
Yeah.